Welcome to the Live Full, Work Fun podcast. This is the show to encourage you to live your life to the fullest and do fun work that fuels your lifestyle. Hi, I'm your host, Gayla Scrivener. Every week, you'll be introduced to amazing guests, useful resources, and inspirational stories. You'll discover opportunities and perspectives to shape your version of living full and working fun. Before we get started with the show, I have a question for you. Are you a busy solopreneur struggling to find the time to consistently post to your social accounts? Well, the Scrivener Solutions team and I are introducing Scrivener Social, the easy-to-use social media scheduling platform paired with all of our workflows. It simplifies the entire posting process, saving you time and boosting your social media marketing efforts. Here's how it works. First, you subscribe to Scrivener Social, choosing the support level that best fits your needs. Second, we have onboarding calls to help you set up your account and give you the guidance for streamlining your posting process. Third, you implement your plan using our workflows to get more out of your social media marketing. Now, you could continue to do it alone, being frustrated and feeling guilty that you never get around to posting to your social accounts for your small business. Or you could save time, energy, and frustration by using an easy-to-use social scheduling platform backed by a support team that helps you streamline the whole process. You deserve a system that makes posting to your social media faster and more efficient. Go to scrivenersocial.com and subscribe today. Now, on to the show. Hi there. This is the show where we explore topics that help you create your lifestyle to live full and work fun. Today, you'll meet Thom Van Dycke. Thom is a fractional chief growth officer for solopreneurs. After 19 years as a pastor, he launched his business at the height of the pandemic in 2020 and grew it to six figures in his first year. He believes to truly engage with our ideal audience, we need to leverage the power of storytelling. Thom is married to Tara, and they have 7 children. They are both advocates for foster and adoption and have welcomed 30 foster children to their home since 2011. I'm super excited for you to meet Thom. Let's jump right into my conversation with him. Welcome, Thom. I am so happy that you've joined me on the show this week.
Well, thanks, Gayla. I'm really happy to be a guest. I appreciate it.
I met you, it's almost been a year since I first met you, and I was coached by you in the StoryBrand community, and that experience was amazing, and I've never said thank you, and it was really amazing, and I know you through StoryBrand, and I don't know a lot about you, but I know that you have a lot of kids.
Yeah.
And what intrigues me is that you transitioned from being a minister to owning your own business. And that intrigues me because we talk about transition a lot on the Live Full Work Fun podcast. And sometimes there's just different reasons for transition, and all of our stories are a little bit different. And I would love to hear about you. First, introduce everybody to yourself and tell us where you came from.
Yeah. Oh, I'd love to. Thank you. It's true. I was a pastor for 19 years. I live in Manitoba, Canada, in a place that doesn't really know about StoryBrand. And what happened was, because it wasn't really a planned transition. Lots of transitions aren't planned transitions, but I had been in ministry for 19 years. And, during the pandemic, I often tell people the pandemic was actually a gift. It was a blessing because it was a magnifying glass that exposed strength, but it also exposed weakness. So people who were strong, that was magnified, and we can celebrate those people. I think of frontline workers and all these people who gave so sacrificially. But where there was unhealth, that also got magnified, and it was no different in organizations. And so the church that I was a part of, there's just stuff that came up. And I was part of a very large church in Canada. We had 4,500 people in our church, 80 staff. I was part of senior leadership, and the church went through a crisis in the summer of the pandemic, and it split. And so my whole world was kind of unraveling around me. And I happened to have Don Miller's book, Building a Story Brand. Now, Don attracts lots of people in a faith with a faith background because he used to write faith-based books way back, Blue Like Jazz. And so people like me remember reading those in their 20s. And then, so when he came up with this marketing stuff, I was just naturally curious. So I had bought the book for the church, hadn't read it. And in summer, I found myself kind of like, well, I have time on my hands. So I read this book, Building a Story Brand. And at the back of the book, it said, you can certify to become a story brand guide. And it just, all of a sudden, I just went, I wonder if I could do that. So I didn't talk to my wife about it. I went and I talked to a couple of business people I know and asked me whether they would be willing to, whether they, it was all confidential. I said, would you be willing to hire me to do some marketing projects for you if I went this route? And lo and behold, some people actually invested in me and helped me get started. And I certified as a guide. And so on October 1st, 2020, I launched my business. It was exactly 19 years to the day that I took my first job as a pastor. And I originally set it up as a 6-month unpaid leave of absence, just to make sure that, there was a fallback plan if it didn't go well. But business took off, and I felt very, very blessed. I would say the first 6 projects I did were sympathy gigs, people from the church who felt bad, for how things had gone, and said, we'll take a risk on Thom. We trusted him as a leader. We're going to try him out as a marketer. And it just took off. I managed to pay myself twice as much in my first year of business as I ever paid myself, or as I ever got paid as a pastor. So, it's not all about finances, but when you're looking at metrics to see if a business is viable, finances are important. And so, yeah, it worked. And it wasn't an easy transition, but boy, am I ever enjoying it. I've enjoyed building my business. I've enjoyed the people I've gotten to know. StoryBrand, the community has been amazing. Meeting people like you has been awesome. So I've been very blessed and very grateful for the road into business.
Well, I know that the investment of becoming a certified story brand guide is quite an investment, and especially starting out like that. But you did a really smart thing is you felt the waters to see, hey, would you invest in me first, but that took a lot of faith and a lot of courage, I think, just to do it right out of the gate and pivot like that.
One of the things that was very helpful is I had been commissioned to write a children's book. So there was a guy in our church, his name is Ray. He's an NHL hockey agent. This is the greatest story. And in March of 2020, he approached me and said, Thom, and I had never met him before, actually, but we'd become very good friends. And he said, Thom, I want to get a children's book written as a way to give back to the community. He was going to sponsor it through his hockey agency. He wanted it to be about hockey, positive story to encourage kids. And he said, you're the best storyteller I know, so can you write it? And so I ended up writing 2 books for him and illustrating them both. And in the end, I actually wrote them with hockey players as co-authors. Now, the reason that's important is in summer, he was almost like, as everything was falling apart around me, he was kind of a little frustrated that these books weren't getting written. And I said, well, it's more work than you think. Like, I'm doing it on weekends and evenings. And he goes, well, what would it take for you to just write them for me? And I said, well, somebody's got to pay my salary. Somebody, and that's when we had a conversation. I had a conversation with Ray about marketing, and he actually paid for my certification and gave me what worked out to be about half-time pay for the first half a year of my business. So, and I did the marketing for the books and, built the website. That was all part of it. So it was certainly, he became a client of mine, but without that kind of, investment. And I remember looking at him going, I was holding this check in my hand. I was going, Ray, I don't know if I'll ever be able to pay you back. And he just leaned forward and he goes, said, I'm not giving you a loan. I'm giving you a gift. And so that to me was the kind of affirmation I needed. So, you talk about faith. I don't know if your listeners are familiar with this idea of laying out a fleece. There's a Bible story about laying out a fleece. And It's kind of this way of saying, is God really in this thing? I just really feel like there was a plan that was opening up in front of me. So yes, it was a big step. It felt like a big risk, but man, to have people say, I believe in you and I'm going to invest in you, that's pretty huge. That is very huge.
That is huge. And with you taking those first steps and saying, I'm going this direction, and things worked out, and there was this gift that of course you weren't expecting anything like that. That is a wonderful story. I had no idea about that. I'm so glad that you're here to get to know you better. How about, now you mentioned, you're still really young in your business.
Yeah.
So, and you were in ministry for 19 years, and you alluded a little bit to there's been some challenges. Well, what kind of challenges had you faced so far, and what got you to come through those? Or
so, and now you're speaking specifically about my business, challenges in the business. Yeah. Well, one thing is, you have to understand, I did not know what a lead generator was when I started. Like, I'd never heard the word. I didn't know what top line and bottom line revenue were. Like, I had working concepts, but I didn't know like cash flow. And like, it was just, it was such a new experience for me. And I love learning, love it. So to me, it just seemed like, sort of just this great big experiment. And it felt very fun for me to figure out. I think it felt less fun for my wife to figure out. Because it's financially stressful, but for me it was a lot of fun to try and figure it out. But the imposter syndrome was profound. Who's going to hire a pastor to be a marketer, like to build their website? Like, who's going to do that? And I had a very defining moment, and it happened. Thankfully, it happened fairly early on. At about month 3, I just sat down, and one day I just went, look, literally said to myself, Thom, marketing, first of all, I reminded myself, you were a good leader. I led large teams, hundreds of volunteers and dozens of staff. I've taught large audiences, so I'm comfortable teaching. I'm a good communicator. That's been affirmed to me. Really, marketing is communicating in a new genre. And as soon as I said that to myself, I went, now I can do it. And honestly, that's when things took off, because I could speak confidently about what I was doing. So that was one of the first big challenges I had. In my first year, I didn't have a pipeline at all. There were no projects stacking up, but it was unbelievable how I would be wrapping up a project and the next lead would come in and it would turn into a client. So in 3 years of business, I've never run out of work. I've hardly had a slow month, but it's just been constant until this summer. And this summer it is fascinating to me, because I had probably, 75% of my income was coming from white labeling that I was doing for other agencies. So I was copywriting as a contractor for other agencies. And it was wonderful. It was a great way to run your business. The contracts ended, the projects wrapped up, and nobody renewed. And it was all like really great reasons. Like I was working with 5 agencies, 2 of them joined, like they amalgamated. So that's okay. And then a bunch of them changed their models. So they just didn't, or they hired an in-house copywriter because they were growing. All of these natural developments, but it left me going, oh shoot, now what? And fortunately, I had, since January, very intentionally been moving towards offering more coaching as a service. And so then it was like, well, I guess I'm embracing this. And since August, I've done 1 copywriting project, and I've rebuilt my business as a consulting service. So I just signed up I'm looking at my whiteboard. I just signed up my 8th client today as a business consultant now. So I think, but I mean, whenever you reinvent yourself, there's this pause in cash flow, and there's all these new fears. Can I do this? Is it too soon? Have I given up? Like, you have all those internal dialogues. Really, I feel like everything has been leading towards this, and I'm loving it. The student, I'm working myself with an amazing coach who's giving me the kind of structure I need to design a really great consultancy. And it's feeding a part of me that I didn't know was like hungry. So it's been very good, but that has been very, very stressful to manage that transition and my expectations, quite frankly, even having, thank goodness we had the foresight to build up and not spend all the money that comes in. So, you have a war chest that you can kind of lean on, and that's been paying the bills. But now it's ramping up again. So it's only been kind of a 2-month blip, really, at the end of the day.
Had you ever thought during the last few years, hmm, maybe I need to go back and have a position? Or have you ever felt like, oh my gosh, can I really, really build this thing?
Yes, I definitely have. There really aren't very many things that I deeply miss about my previous career. When I became a pastor, I was 21 years old, and I was in university to become a teacher. And lots of people knew that my dream was to be a middle school teacher. And then I was offered a job as a youth pastor, and I took it. And I knew that there was going to be it was going to be really hard when my university class graduated, like when I should have been graduating with my teaching degree. And it was like you have these pangs of like, did I make the right decision? And I have moments like that still, where now I have these pangs where I go, oh, I really miss, running the summer camp, or I miss building into young people the way I used to. But truthfully, there is no plan B for me. This is going to work. I think I have the mindset for it. I have the skills for it now, and I have the motivation for sure.
Well, I asked that because sometimes we have doubts. You talked about, imposter syndrome and can I do that? And when we're in the midst of transition, or we're thinking about changing to do something different, or just sticking our neck out, I think that our listeners need to know that it is perfectly natural to have doubts,
Absolutely.
and still walk forward. And I like to tease is like, I came from a corporate world and a corporate structure, and I've never had any entrepreneurial experience or, guides at the time. I just like, I've got to do something different. And you think that you're all alone in this journey, but you're not. We all have our doubts, and we all have our wonders
Totally.
of can we move forward? But as the longer that we distance ourselves, like the longer we're not away from we're away from that structure of the old life, I think I've become more unemployable than ever because it's like nobody wants me because I just want to create all the time, and I want to change and pivot. And you haven't been in your business but very long, but you transitioned. You're just this summer, you saw the need, and you saw an opportunity to transition to consultancy.
Yeah.
And what does that look like if somebody wants to seek your services for a consultation? What do you specialize in? How can you help them?
Sure. So it's interesting because I don't lead with I'm a marketer anymore, and I don't lead with I'm a certified story brand guide. I can clarify your messaging. I don't lead with that anymore. What I lead with is the deep felt need, fear that solopreneurs have. And I work primarily with solopreneurs. There's a statistic and there's actually quite a bit of research that backs this up. 94 to 96% of all solopreneurs are making $5,000 to $15,000 a month. And when you really dig into it, you realize, okay, they're actually making more like $5,000 a month. That's where the majority of them fall. And, is that revenue, or is that what they're paying themselves? Either way you cut it, it's not a ton of money if you're trying to build a viable business, because business works on creating products with profit margins that are great enough that you can continue to reinvest in the business and pay yourself and move forward. That's what business is. There's lots of people who have hobby businesses. That's not what I'm interested in. I'm building a real thing here, right? And a lot of the people that I talk to are as well. So what I find is that there's many, many people who are brilliant in their own lane. I call them invisible geniuses. And all they need is a really simple 1-2 punch. They need to learn how to get in front of the right people with the right message. That's it. If you can get in front of the right people with the right message, you're going to land clients, and you're going to be able to build your business. Now, I thought I was really good with messaging, and I would say I have a knack for words and copywriting. I'm an author. But I have really changed the way I talk about my messaging because it wasn't kind of stopping people in their tracks enough. And you need to make people notice you. It's very important. So I say that statistic, and then I work with solopreneurs to help them fix that. The way I do it is getting them in front of the right people with the right message. And my goal is to double your bank account in the first 6 to 12 months of working together. And I can do it. I've got a plan. It's a framework, not a blueprint. So it's going to feel very much like your own stuff. It is truly consulting. But I'm going to give you the framework to build a business that allows you to double your revenue and then scale to $50,000 recurring monthly revenue. That is the goal. And if you do research, a lot of consultants will say the $50,000 month is a really healthy goal for somebody who's in a consulting service. And I work mostly with other consultants. So I'm kind of like a consultant to consultants. And we certainly work on messaging, but we also work on what is your solution? Who's your audience? Where are you looking for your audience? How are you doing introductions and meeting people? Do you need sales training? Then I'll help with sales training. It's really a full service. And I'll tell you what's most exciting about it for me. And I always worry a little bit that I'm going to offend people because I know there's a place for pure marketing. I know that. So if that's what people are doing, that's no problem. For me, it felt too small because what would happen is I can hide behind the fact that I do marketing. For example, I can say I can do the best marketing in the world, but there's no ROI in it because if you suck at sales, I can bring you 1,000 leads, but if you can't sell them and close the deal, there's no ROI there for you. And to me, that was comforting because that meant that if a business hired me but didn't succeed, it's not necessarily because of the work that I did. That has become increasingly uncomfortable for me. Now I want to offer the full thing, the full program, so to speak. How do you go about right from the foundation, the messaging, the theory, the scripting that needs to happen? How do you meet the client? How do you generate the leads? How do you get in front of them? How do you get in front of your ideal client, not just network ad nauseum? Once you're in front of the right client, how do you close the deal? But not only that, what do you do with a client once you have them? How do you get them into a retainer that you could actually maintain a client retainer for 12 to 36 months and not run out of material and still continue to add value? How can you create your retainer in such a way that it ascends over time so that as you add value to your client, your retainer reflects the value that you're bringing to that client and it actually ascends? That is how you build a very, very healthy, robust consultancy. And that's what I like working with clients on. So I work a lot with fractionals, a fractional CFO or CIO, some fractional CMOs, chief marketing officers as well, to help them really develop the consulting side of what they want to do as a business.
I love that. And for our listeners, I mean, I've been building my business for quite some time, and it was not until recently that I heard the concept of fractional CMO, fractional this, fractional that. Could you speak to that? Because this opens up a whole world, and it's like, being a solopreneur, we don't have to, I mean, we have all these different clients, but we would have the responsibilities of a position for another small business. Could you speak
Right.
to the value of fractional work and for both doing it for others, but working with other small businesses?
Sure. You have to always define your terms. And what you'll find is if you talk to a dozen different people, they'll have a dozen different tweaks on what it means to be fractional. Okay, so the simplest definition is this. Let's say you're running a business, you're up to 8 to 12 employees. Let's say you are even a restaurant, whatever, it doesn't matter. And you go, we are at the point where we really need to take our marketing seriously. And so you start to research what a chief marketing officer would be. And you go, oh my gosh, we cannot hire somebody full time, but who would ever do that as a part-time? And that's where you look into an outsourced service like a fractional CMO. So a fractional chief marketing officer splits up their time between clients, but they sit as part of your leadership team. Now, this is where defining expectations and deliverables and terms is really important because unfortunately, what fractional means to a lot of people is that I'm essentially hiring an agency that's going to do all the deliverables, plus give us a bit of strategy and a bit of planning. But that's not truly what it means to be a fractional CMO. So if you are a CMO for a small business, you would not be pulling off, you would not be doing all the work. You would be managing the work. You'd be managing the team, or maybe the outsourced contractors that are doing the social media for you. But you're more strategic and leadership as opposed to creating deliverables. That's really hard. That's one of the reasons I shy away from the term fractional CMO, because it's packaged in a way that it doesn't mean strategy anymore. A fractional CFO, very often, these are people who are maybe older in their career, so they might be in their 60s, and they're thinking, well, I was a chief financial officer for 3 decades. I don't want that anymore. So they're like, I want 8 clients where I can be a fractional CMO. Very hard concept though, because they are used to trading time for money. And so they create this engagement. They go, well, I can give them about 5 hours a week. I would normally get paid this much if I was an accountant, so it should be about that. No, that's not how you get paid as a fractional. You get paid according to the value that you bring. You don't think about it in terms of hours. You think about it as how much you can help the company you're working for grow. So it is a hard shift to go in this direction. But as a fractional, you'll sit as part of the C-suite, part of the senior leadership, and you will manage that side of the business. Granted, it won't be 40 hours a week. It will be several hours a week, maybe only 2 hours a week. But that's what you do as a fractional service provider. And you are right that there is every kind of fractional out there. You can have fractional. I even have a friend who's a fractional CEO, if you can imagine.
Really?
He is, yeah. The company that he's working for is in transition. I think they might have even offered him the job, and he's like, not interested in working for a company. They said, well, will you just do it part-time and give us vision and give us direction until we find our replacement? So he's a fractional CEO. So there's every brand of fractional out there, and there's whole networks devoted just to fractional service providers.
Now, you mentioned about trading time for dollars. In your journey, was that a tough transition for you coming out of your background?
So hard. And the transition, so this is, if you want to hear like the motivation for consulting, this is really it in a nutshell. If you offer deliverables, you're going to hit a ceiling. Now, there's nothing wrong with hitting that ceiling, but there's a ceiling. I can only build so many websites in a month. You can only do so much writing or email marketing. You can only handle so many clients before you need to do something about it. And sure, you can hire, but if you're really committed to a solopreneur type model, we don't want to hire. That's not what we want to do. We don't want to create big teams of employees. So then you're going to hit a revenue ceiling that you cannot break through unless you raise your prices. And maybe you don't want to raise your prices. So what do you do about that? Not only that, but a lot of people who are creating deliverables are looking at the things that they create and going, you have no idea how to actually use that website effectively. You have no idea how to do email marketing effectively. You have no idea how to follow up with clients effectively. So you start to see these holes in what you can offer, and it's like frustrating. But letting go of deliverables is so hard. A consultant is not in charge of deliverables. Now, I've managed to make that transition. Mentally, I've been able to do it. Now I look at the deliverables completely different. So in my model, what happens is my retainer ascends as I bring value to your company. So there's certain benchmarks where my retainer will go up, and it's all contractual, it's all spelled out, so there's no surprises. But I think that's a good way of doing business. I just talked to somebody yesterday. She found out that one email that she wrote made the company $2 million.
What? Awesome.
She wrote an email. She never heard about it. She followed up with the client and she said, like, do you know if it was effective? It might have been an email sequence, maybe 5 or 6 emails. I don't know. And he went, well, yeah, I think we made about $2 million off that one sequence. Would it not make sense if you can bring that level of value that you're not charging $1,200 for an email sequence? You should be charging more like $10,000 for that email sequence. It's a drop in the bucket if you're bringing in $2 million worth of revenue. So In the same way, if you can actually tell how much value you're bringing in terms of maybe increased revenue or increased leads or client acquisition, whatever it is, your retainer should reflect that. So that's the way I work.
Well, I think that you had gotten it because I mean we have the transition is hard. I just the way that we're raised and going to a traditional job, I had a
Right.
tough time transitioning.
So I just have to I remember where I was going now. The transition from deliverables to consulting. If your retainer ascends as you make your client more, as you add value to your client, you make them more successful. Then if I look at it and I say they need a website to be truly successful, now what I'm going to do is instead of saying, oh, I'm going to mark up that website, I'm going to make more money off my client by giving them a website that I've marked up by 50 or 60%. Now I say, how can I get you that deliverable as affordably as possible? Because if you can get it fast and decent, but for less money, you're going to become more successful and my retainer will reflect that. So the way you think about deliverables really changes. I say I don't do deliverables for my clients, but the reality is, if I know that they're terrible at copywriting, I'm going to help them in copywriting. I'm going to get them started, and then I'm going to teach them how to do it effectively. There's kind of a quasi deliverable there because I need my clients to be successful. I really want to see them grow their business. That will also grow my own business. I love it because it puts me into their business. It gives me skin in the game, so to speak. Like I'm really working hard to help them succeed. I think it's a great model. I've enjoyed it so far.
So you work with solopreneurs, but are they doing I mean, I know that you're helping them along and you're going to help with copywriting, but are they truly solopreneurs or do they have a small team, or are you helping them organize or orchestrate things with independent contractors or helping them connect with the right people to grow their business?
Yes to all of that, honestly. I work with true solopreneurs. There's a fractional CFO that I'm working with. He is a true solopreneur. Like there is nobody on his team. He just does it. But then there are others who have a VA or who have, I mean, am I a true solopreneur? I've got a VA. I've got a coach on payroll, so to speak. I've got a bookkeeper. So, they're contractors that are helping my business as well. And yet I would still call myself a solopreneur. One of my ideal clients that I would love to work with more, and I have a few like this already, these are marketers. They have a marketing agency, and they're now going, okay, as the owner of this agency, I need to add consulting services. So what they're going to do is they're going to build out a consulting offer, and it's going to be supported by sort of the traditional agency model. In that case, they're not a solopreneur, but I'm treating them as if they are, because we're developing a specific service that is really a one-person service. So even though they have the support of the agency and they still have to give some oversight there, they are becoming a consultant. And so I'm helping two people right now transition into that model where they were a marketing agency, but now they want to be a consultant with marketing agency as backup.
I can see that because that's very similar to my model of breaking away from the implementation team or the marketing team, doing the consistent, content flow, and then here's the consultancy part of it,
Right.
which they're already doing. It's just breaking it apart, right?
Right.
And being able to have that added value, but separated in the minds of their clients. I mean, I can see that value.
I think it's important. I really do, because I mean, sure, there's always a little bit of strategy baked into any deliverable, probably, but strategic thinking is a specific skill set. And if you've been hired to do a website, for example, or social media marketing, and now the company's starting to get this idea that you're actually really good at it, but it's because you're strategic. And now they start to lean on you and they start to say, well, what is your opinion about this? And what do you think we should do next? Like now you're going into consulting. That is the definition of scope creep. Like that's the definition of it, where now you're going beyond the contractual agreement that you have with that client and offering them additional services. And I think that it's really hard for businesses to recognize that. They're like, well, why should we pay for your thoughts? Or why should we pay for your strategy? They don't realize that they're actually tapping into that. And that's where managing expectations and being very, very confident in yourself. Look, if I'm going to enter into a relationship with you as a consultant now, this is going to look different. And I'm going to actually add, it's going to be tangible results that we're adding. And my price should be reflected in the contract.
Well, Thom, I really like your perspective on so many things here, because in one respect, if we're someone that wants to start our own business, you're opening up perspective to say you too can be a thought leader, a knowledge. You can create a solopreneurship that you don't have to have deliverables. Your experience can help other businesses grow.
Right.
Therefore, you grow. You may choose to have deliverables, but if you want to stay lean and mean and not have that cap with the deliverables, it is wonderful that, right out of the gate, we all have these experiences that we can do. But I think we limit ourselves. I know I had that. It's like, what is it that I can do? Because my experience is not enough to tell you how to do things. And it all comes with imposter syndrome, right?
Right.
So I love how you framed that and being able to speak or command the conversation in a confident way to show the value of hiring somebody to help you do the thinking. Thinking is hard work.
It is.
Strategizing is hard work. And I don't think I think we take that for granted sometimes. Or sometimes we are in our own little world growing our business and we think we can do it all. But we need help with that brain power to accomplish and get to that next level.
I signed a client this morning, and his question was, he's fairly new in a coaching. He launched out, left corporate, started a coaching practice. And he said, in 18 months, which is the length of the contract, he said, maybe I'll be doing a lot of this stuff already. So then the question is, why would I hire a contractor? I'm smart enough to figure this out on my own, or a consultant. I'm smart enough to figure it out on my own. And you're right. Many people, we can figure it out on our own. But what I have found working with my coach is that it expedites the process tremendously. It's actually risk management to hire somebody who steps ahead of you, who can walk you through, this is what works and try this and don't try that. These are pitfalls. I mean, it's just a smart way to go about business.
Awesome, Thom. Now, I know that you have some free monthly training, and could you tell us a little bit about that so that people can get to know you and be able to connect with you even more?
Sure. Like I said, building your business is as simple as getting in front of the right people with the right message. So I believe really strongly that messaging is critical to get right. So on the first Wednesday of every month, I do something called Master Your Message. It's free training. It is story brand based. I have 3 topics that I cover, and I cover them month by month. So if you come 4 months in a row, you'll start to hear a repeat. And they're not recorded. You have to show up in person. But Master Your Message has been really effective to help people think properly about how to bring their brand story, into their messaging, marketing, and sales. Open to anybody. And I do a couple other events that people are welcome to check out. I do a conversion workshop, but you need to come to Master Your Message first so that it makes sense of the next thing. So Master Your Message, first Wednesday of every month. The way you sign up for it is you just come to my website, thomvandycke.com. There'll be a pop-up. It's in your face. You can sign up for it there. But I'd love to have more people come, and it's absolutely free, and it will always be free.
Excellent. And when you sign up, I noticed on your website, it's like you can come to one, but once you're signed up, the first time you know about them and you get reminded, and then we'd be reminded of any other events that you're hosting or
Correct.
any other offerings.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you again, Thom, for being here. I truly enjoyed our conversation, and you've really inspired me to continue to live full and work fun. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Gayla.
Well, thanks for being here with me today. Be sure to scroll down to the show notes and get the links to Thom's website and social platforms. And let's continue the conversation. Hop over to Facebook and post what your biggest takeaway from today's show was in the Live Full Work Fun group. Thanks again for listening. Until next time, have a fantastic week. Live full, work fun. This episode has been brought to you by Scrivener Social, the easy-to-use social scheduling platform built for the busy solopreneur. You deserve a system that makes posting to your social media faster and more efficient. Go to scrivenersocial.com and subscribe today.